is currently the Deputy State Secretary for EU Bilateral Relations and Cultural Diplomacy at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Hungary. He was born initially in 1965 in Budapest, studied in 1983 at the Friedrich Schiller University, and he received his diploma in 1989 at the Faculty of Humanities of the Ötvös Loránd University of Arts, majoring in Hungarian and German language and literature. In 1989 until 1990, he was a DAAD scholar at the Hamburg University. And we've spoken about DAAD a number of times with our young leaders this week as one of the very interesting examples of also cultural diplomacy. That's the Deutsche Akademische Austauschdienst, or the German Academic Exchange Service. From 1995 until 1998, he was the PhD student of the Budapest Institute of Graduate International and Diplomatic Studies. 2006 until 2009, PhD student of the Andrassy Grulia German Language University of Budapest. So you can see the connections with Germany go back quite some time. From 1988 on, he's worked in a number of different electronic and printed media, including the Hungarian radio, Heti Valyaz, and as well as Figyelő, and excuse me if I'm mispronouncing the Hungarian names. In this case, he was the editor as well as the lead writer. He taught also foreign languages department of the Ötvös Loránd University of the Arts. He was the director of the Friedrich Naumann Foundation from 1992 until 1998 in Hungary. And during the term of the first Orbán cabinet, he was the administrative state secretary for the Ministry of National Cultural Heritage. Later, in the second half of his term, he was Hungary's ambassador to Germany. He served as ambassador to Switzerland from 2003 until 2005. From 2005 until 2006, he was the deputy head of department of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. He was also a senior consultant at Roland Berger Strategy Consultants from 2006 until 2010. So again, some experience in the private sector as well as the public sector. So I think really we can benefit from both of your perspectives in that regard for the lecture. In addition, since 2006, Mr. Pröhle has also served as the National Superintendent of the Lutheran Church of Hungary. So again, a man of much experience and also many responsibilities, both publicly as well as also in the private sector. The topic that he has chosen today is the importance of nation branding in contemporary international economics. I'd ask you to please join me in a very, very warm welcome for Mr. Gergely Pröhle. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Domfried, for your kind words and for the introduction. It's always very interesting to know about myself. Some new information. Coming from a country which is very much in the international public discussion nowadays. I'm very happy that I can share some views with you, and we can probably discuss afterwards. My experience is, of course, totally different from that what we have heard from Mr. General Secretary, because you have heard in my CV, I am in the classical diplomacy. So and being a civil servant in a classical foreign ministry in a country 20 years after the political changes in Central and Eastern Europe, it's of course a very important and very interesting experience, because there was a kind of lack of that global view what you have tried to explain, and of course the importance of cultural diplomacy was a little bit different what we have to experience nowadays. So I appreciate very much the achievement and the efforts of your institute here, because it's still a very interesting task to fight for the interests of cultural diplomacy, to develop this consciousness that cultural diplomacy and even culture plays an important role in not just in nation branding, but also in the international diplomacy and even in the economic development of the world. I hope we will have some time for discussion, and to make it short, I would first read my text. In today's changing world, culture matters more than ever. Increased human mobility is accelerated by open market policies, climate change, and new, faster forms of communication. Cultural and social transformation are taking place at an increasingly rapid pace and can result in profound social ramifications for societies as they try to adapt. In this ever-changing cultural and political landscape, where cultural diversity is present both inside and outside every society, a new debate has emerged challenging public policies. Indeed, the power of culture in all its diversity as a prerequisite for peace, a source for intellectual, emotional, and spiritual well-being is more important than ever. The recent Millennium Summit of Heads of States in New York, September 2010, recognized the value of cultural diversity for the enrichment of humankind and the importance of culture for development, and mentioned in particular its contribution to the achievement of the Millennium Development Goals. Policies sometimes limit culture to expressions of the past. It is important that cultural policies equally consider the capacity of culture to regenerate permanently through infinite new forms of creativity and innovation. Digital culture today occupies a widening space with new cultural content, audiences, virtual identities, and new social networks. While information and communication technologies play a central role in creation, production, distribution, access, and enjoyment of cultural content, they may serve to standardize rather than diversify cultural contents. New forms of cultural expressions have emerged, experienced principally by young people in urban settings alongside new media. E-books, visual arts, graphic novels, street art, and so on. We shall make best use of all those challenges mentioned above when increasingly practicing public diplomacy as an important tool of soft power and paying more and more attention to our country's reputation. It is not hype, but a non-stop affair in which we continuously have to question whether we should improve our public diplomacy structure, instruments, and content. Public diplomacy is a tool to bring diplomacy closer to the citizens through country promotion, the transparency of international affairs, and through more intensive communication. Public diplomacy can be a useful tool in bridging gaps between radically different cultures. It is practiced between countries where there is a great deal of economic interdependence. The fact that there are new participants in the playing field can only be welcomed. The contributions by civil society and the non-governmental organizations are of particular importance. New non-state participants have an increasing impact on decision-making in contemporary society. The main goal of a government public diplomacy can be, as we have seen, to pay more and more attention to the country's reputation, with other words, to sell a nation brand. Do we need it at all, the nation branding? This is an interesting question to put forward. We can observe the standardization of some cultural patterns at the global level and cultural diversification at the local level, both due to the impressive number of cultural goods and services circulating globally through transnational cultural industries, international companies, and development cooperation. Universal visual images, uniform patterns of popular culture, and similar consumer goods are brought to the most remote corners of the globe. In this changing global landscape, we can speak about new paradigms of nation brandings, since a constant process of change and exchange among peoples, ideas, and creativity is sustained by intercultural dialogue. But let us look a little bit closer to the academic term nation branding. It was first coined by Simon Anholt in the 90s and refers to the application of marketing strategies to individual countries. The aim is to create and promote a distinct self-image and international reputation that will most effectively serve a nation's interests. The tactic has become especially important for countries aiming to carve out particular niches for themselves in the international system as global markets continue to expand and international competition for trade, investment, and tourism intensifies. Yes, the field remains one of the most important arenas of public diplomacy, but the growing interest in the power and potential of nation branding suggests that its presence and legitimacy will only continue to grow in the coming years. Therefore, we definitely need it. In the broadest sense, nation branding simply refers to the application of corporate branding strategies to individual nations with the aim of influencing foreign affairs and international interactions. Nation branding focuses on developing and appealing positive image in order to support a nation's presence and influence in the international realm. Nation branding recognizes the profound influence this instinct to associate nations and generalized qualities can have on a country's perceived character and standing in the world, and subsequently attempts to use these associations to the nation's benefit. Similarly, to the way in which businesses use advertising to appeal to consumers, branding attempts to manipulate that dynamic in favor of the country's own interests. The specific goals of branding campaigns can vary according to the government's priorities, but they often focus on issues such as attracting foreign investment, facilitating trade, and more generally speaking, developing a more positive image abroad. The aim of nation branding, as outlined above, represents only the broadest sense of the term. Further specifications about what exactly nation branding is and how it is applied, it's a subject of heated debate internationally. We can go in details today. But while public diplomacy is still widely thought of as being performed only by governments, there is a good deal of value in applying many of its principles to corporations. Corporate public diplomacy involves actively shaping the communications environment within which corporate activities are performed, and reducing the degree of which misperceptions complicate relations between the company and its customers. The question is whether a multinational corporation can carry a distinct national brand as well. The answer is probably yes. Everybody of the audience has, I'm sure, visited already an IKEA department store. If you become an IKEA customer, you instantly get to know about how special and how loving Sweden, the Swedish way of life is. You might even think that the products sold in IKEA must be Swedish. Most of them are Polish, Hungarian, or Vietnamese. But still, somehow, the brand the department store is selling managed to be so genuine Swedish that you would never doubt its originality. Ladies and gentlemen, I just mentioned that coming from Hungary is a special feeling because we have nowadays news in the international press which are sometimes not true and which are not a real contribution to nation branding nowadays. So from that point of view, it was very important to learn from the country report what ICD published just recently. I have read it really carefully, and I would like to make some comments on it. It is indeed true that Hungary is a relatively small nation within Europe. There are not many people in the world to speak Hungarian language. Therefore, Hungary can only reach a small circle of people with its native language. That means that Hungary needs to make more of an effort to engage in cultural diplomacy, since the country is not a huge economic power either. That is, Hungary needs to strengthen the role of its cultural diplomacy within the field of politics and foreign relations in order to achieve the long-term goal of enhancing its image and position in the international world. Hungarian culture, heritage, and tourism have to be made more accessible and have to be looked upon a marketable product by putting together the classical with the new. And how to do it? ICD very rightly suggests by expanding Hungarian cultural diplomacy around the world through the traditional ties of the Hungarian diaspora in Europe and beyond. As of January 1st, 2011, anyone that can retrace their roots to Hungarian ancestry and that can demonstrate knowledge of the Hungarian language has the right to apply for Hungarian citizenship. Although this is a political move, it has cultural origins, since those now given the opportunity to apply for citizenship have been Hungarian culturally. This is significant because of the fact of extending citizenship to many people is viewed as historically symbolic. Therefore, cultural diplomacy eases relations with Hungarians all over the world. Ladies and gentlemen, I think when I try to identify the real topic of the conference, it's important that we try to speak more internationally and also at home about the importance of culture in the communication, in the international communication. We try to explain more for investors, traders, businessmen, how important it is to know the culture of each other, because I think it is a very important bridge, a very important link, and always a very important tool in the diplomacy, in the international trade and the international economics. Thank you very much for your attention, and I'm open to answer your questions.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Gergely Pröhle, for your lecture.